Hello again, I'm Anthony Ortega, and today we're going to be talking about the uses of language with style and whether it's appropriate or inappropriate. So we have 18 terms that we talked about during the chapter, and these terms we'll be talking about what's inappropriate and what's appropriate for a speech. Okay, so starting off with alliteration. Alliteration would be appropriate because it rhymes. It gives a rhyming tone to a sentence, which is catchy towards the audience and helps understand. Next one would be antithesis. Antithesis would be inappropriate because it is opposite of something, and it can throw off and confuse the audience, and we wouldn't want that. Next one would be cliches. Cliches would be inappropriate because it lacks the original thought of a phrase or an opinion, which it's just not original, which it's inappropriate. Next one would be colloquialisms. Colloquialisms would be appropriate because many people are familiar with this type of language, which is appropriate. Next one would be generic. Generic would be appropriate because many people can relate to it as well. It talks about the characteristics of a group, which many people can relate to. Next one would be hedge. Hedge would be appropriate because it gives the audience an understanding of the impact of an utterance, which is definitely appropriate because it helps understand. Next one would be heterosexist language. Heterosexist language is definitely inappropriate. Inappropriate because it criticizes against homosexuals, and obviously it's not right for the homosexuals, so it's not appropriate for a speech. We don't want any criticism. Next one would be hyperbole. Hyperbole wouldn't be appropriate because it exaggerates on statements that it can throw off many of the people, and it would be really confusing at times, so we don't want that. Next one would be jargon. Jargon wouldn't be appropriate for speech because not everyone understands this type of language, so it can be confusing towards people that don't understand it. Next one would be mantling terms. Mantling terms wouldn't be appropriate for speeches either because it excludes, or it only talks about the male. For example, like policeman, it only mentions man. It does not include women in it, like policewoman. Like it sounds wrong because it excludes the females, which in other words would be inappropriate for a speech. Next one would be metaphors. Metaphors would be appropriate for a speech because it emphasizes the impact of a statement that can definitely be understanding towards the people. Next one would be qualifiers. Qualifiers as well would be appropriate because it's somewhat like a metaphor. It's easier to understand. So I mean, qualifiers. Next one would be regionalism. Regionalism wouldn't be appropriate because it's sort of like a different language from like another countries. It can be confusing. Not everybody would understand regionalism. For example, I wouldn't understand regionalism either. And then another one would be sexist language. Sexist language is obviously not appropriate for speech because it excludes the other sex. It only talks about this sex and it leaves out the other sex, which is inappropriate for speech. Next one would be similes. Similes would be appropriate because it resembles with another word. For example, like the word like. It resembles and it blends into a sentence, which is definitely like more clear on a sentence, and it matches, it goes good, smoothly. Next one would be slang type. Slang type is definitely appropriate because a lot of people have their own type of slang. I believe there's 4 types of slangs, and a lot of people have their own slang, which helps them understand the way they talk and the way this group talks. Everybody has like their own type of slang. Next one would be spotlighting. Spotlighting language is appropriate for speech because it focuses on one topic of a subject, one main point of a subject, and so it spotlights it until the audience is very well understanding of it. So it helps the audience understand what we're talking about, what the topic is, the subject is. It's pretty much spotlighting when you're on stage, and the spotlight is like right on the whoever is performing, so we can clearly see who's doing the performance. Well, same goes for sentence, like with sentence and stuff. Spotlighting it spotlights on the main subject or the sentence whole. The last one would be tag questions. Tag questions would not be appropriate for speech because it has like the negative and the positive clauses that can really confuse people. For example, me as well, I don't really understand tag questions as much, which I'm sure many of the people can also relate to that because it can be confusing at times. And other than that, that's it for all the 18 terms that we discussed in this chapter, and that's it for today. Thank you.